Good evening from New York. There seems little doubt at this hour. The White House is preparing to sell out all or most of the following: a public option, a national health care exchange, no discrimination against those with pre-existing conditions, and credits for small businesses to help make health care affordable. All of those things part of the health care plan outlined by Max Baucus. Outlined by Max Baucus as chairman of the Senate Finance Committee on November 12, 2008. The same Max Baucus, gang leader of the Gang of Six, who said today, quote, "I'm not sure if the public option is going to survive, frankly." Our fifth story in the countdown. 83 progressives making clear this afternoon that health care reform will not survive in the House without the public option. And Speaker Pelosi then joined them. David Axelrod saying today that the president hopes to have a health care reform bill passed within the next month. One camp inside the White House said to be arguing for what could be called universal light, finding some sort of way to preserve a universal plan of some kind. Another camp inside the White House instead believing that the bill needs to be scaled back significantly in order to ensure its passage. That covering 20 million new Americans might not be as good as covering 40 million would be, but it's better than covering none at all. As the Chicago Tribune's Clarence Page first reported on this news hour last night, the White House now viewing only one member of the Senate Finance Gang of Six, Maine Republican Olympia Snowe, as having any chance of reaching a health care compromise. Yet such a compromise would seem to come at an incredibly high cost. White House Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel said to be pushing Snowe's idea of a public option trigger, which would keep government-run health care only as a fallback option to be triggered only if private insurance costs do not drop far enough or if too few Americans are added to the rolls of the insured. What the White House would gain in one moderate Republican, it would lose in an entire liberal caucus. As we mentioned, the House Progressive Caucus sending a letter to the president in which its 83 members vow they will not vote for any bill that does not include a robust public option. Quote, "We cannot vote for anything less." Make it 84 votes. Speaker Pelosi tonight backing up the Progressive Caucus, adding in a statement, quote, "A bill without a strong public option will not pass the House." As for another member of that Gang of Six, Senator Enzi prevaricating as much as ever. At a rally in Wyoming Tuesday, Senator Enzi saying of the health care reform bill, quote, "I'm pretty sure it's going to fail." The senator later tried to take that back in a written statement, but Tim Phillips, the president of Americans for Prosperity, a lobbyist-funded AstroTurf group that organized that rally, told Greg Sargent of the Plumline blog that Senator Enzi left him with little doubt that he had declared his blanket opposition to the Gang of Six compromise proposal. Lots to talk about, thus, with our own Gene Robinson, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist, associate editor of The Washington Post. Gene, good evening.
Good to be here, Keith.
Well, sacrificing at least 84 members of the House, including the Speaker, to win the support of one Maine Republican. I don't understand that math. Can you explain it?
No, and I did pretty well in math in school. I don't get it either. It's like they give you two equations and you're supposed to solve for both x and y, but with these two equations you can't get both x and y. They're not part of the same system. You gotta do one or the other, it seems to me, but I don't see how it makes sense if you can get a bill through the Senate, but all of a sudden you can't get it through the House.
Different factions inside the White House said to be fighting over this future of health care reform. Those who support the universal plan of some kind and those who think they have to scale this back to secure passage. Does it mean, in fact, that the president has until the start of the speech next Wednesday to decide which side he is actually on?
I suspect he knows which side he's on. He has till the start of the speech to tell us. And, you know, look, he is politically, you could argue, you know, between a rock and a hard place and another rock and maybe a gorilla in terms of trying to thread all these varying constituencies and get this bill passed. And maybe months from now we will think this was a brilliant strategy of letting Congress fight it out and then coming in at the end to save the day and wrap it all up. At the moment, you'd have to say it's questionable at best, and you'd have to wonder what would have happened if he had been more definitive about what he wanted to see in a bill from the beginning.
If the president turns this in its final stages into a purely political calculation, I can't get a good bill passed, so I'll pass a bad bill, is he not going to inherit the wind but going from both directions at once? I mean, won't the Republicans realize they can get away with with this town hall style blackmail against this president forever, knowing that it works against him, while the progressives will just write him off as another politician?
Sure. You know, the center is a very dangerous place to be these days. And look, I do think that that calculation is fairly easy for the White House to make, though. I think they have to believe that getting a bill is always better than getting no bill. And the challenge for them is to get a bill that is acceptable, that is not actually a bad bill. So if you give up the public option, you got to get universality, and you probably got to get more than is on the table right now. So you have to make the equation work out some kind of way that looks like health care reform.
But what about the risk of passing some sort of interim measure here? And we hear Congressman Grijalva, who's the co-chair of the Progressive Caucus, having released a statement last night about grave concerns about these contacts supposedly from the administration to health care reform advocacy organizations. They're going to cease supporting the public option. What good does it profit a man to win a bill and lose the base of his party?
In the medium term and in the long run, it doesn't strike me as a great idea. I mean, look, you could say, okay, this is the best bill we can get. Is the liberal progressive caucus going to thwart what is possible in search of the perfect? And so you could put them in that position. You could maybe wrestle them into going along with what they consider a bad bill. But there's a lot else on the table. You know, our involvement in Afghanistan is deepening. We're talking about Iraq. We're talking about Guantanamo. We're talking about a lot of issues on which the Progressive Caucus is going to have a lot to say, and I don't think you'd want them to be in a foul mood.
No, because he's compromised on everything so far, and as self-defeating as it might be, the Progressive Caucus and progressives would abandon him if necessary, if this would be the policy of this administration into 2012. If it's necessary to find somebody else to run against him, I think they'd do it, no matter how destructive that might seem at face value.
Well, I think that is possible. We are a more polarized nation right now, and I think searching for a mythical center, a mythical compromise between doing something and doing nothing, there's nothing in the middle there. You know, either you're going to do something or you're not, and I think you got to choose.
The middle has been nothing all this time. This is just a different variant of it. Gene Robinson of MSNBC and the Washington Post, as always. Thank you, Gene.
Good to be here.
For more